batch of vaccines from the Canadian government. Roughly over 358,000 doses have arrived in the country, and of course, to bolster the mass vaccination drive in the country. We've just heard from the health PS, Susan Mochachi, right there, actually highlight that these vaccines are free of charge despite them being dispensed from public or private health institutions. So one shouldn't be in a position to pay for these vaccines. They've been covered for by the government of Kenya. And they also welcome the involvement of the private sector to perhaps bolster the mass vaccination drive within the proper channels in order to make sure we return to normalcy in terms of the state of economy in good time. We'll definitely keep you updated in terms of the mass vaccination drive in the country. But before that, we were having a discussion on matters to do with getting justice when it comes to sexual gender-based violence cases in the country. Just evaluating the Sexual Offences Act, perhaps some things that need to be done to bolster a multi-sectoral approach from the relevant agencies in terms of ridding the country of this very bad vice. Joining us in studio as we're deliberating these matters, and ladies, many thanks for your patience. Still with Naomi Kilima, who's a legal officer from the Center of Rights, Education and Awareness, still joined by Yvonne Gashe, who's a critical counseling psychologist for the Green String Network, as well as Jacqueline Ingutia, who is definitely a regional coordinator at the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights. Ladies, before that short interruption, which was definitely necessitated by the fact that that's a business we do right here in terms of informing the public, but still with that spirit, let me finish with you, Naomi Kilima. Just before the break, we were highlighting perhaps some of the issues when it comes to the Sexual Offences Act. So I'd beg to ask, in the midst of these out-of-court settlements, when it comes to issues with the culture in society, what's the way forward with this bill? We've highlighted the challenges, so what's the solution going forward? Let's speak solution-oriented. Okay,
solution number one, we should stop concentrating on the perpetrators and start concentrating on the victims. Our justice system should be more victim-oriented. We should provide solutions for the victims. So this will mean a multi-sectoral sector engagement, whereby the health sector, the police, the DPP, the judiciary, and the legislator all have to work together to find the solution together. The idea of polycare can work, especially if we can incorporate everything where it's a one-stop shop for the victim, where you go report, you given health attention, the evidence is collected at once, this evidence is documented on the spot, the perpetrator is presented in court, and when the bail and bond is being given, they should not be looking at the perpetrator's rights, but more a victim-centered approach where they look at the extent of the damage done to the victim. So, and they should be more, the legislature should work a little bit more to bring up a law that will enable SGBV victims to be getting first priority in court. Like, you would not be, they should not be mixed with, let's say there's a robbery with violence case that is being had before SGBV case. They should be given priority because this is something that is in the country that needs to be addressed, and there should be strict deterrence so that this pandemic, this shadow pandemic, these SGBV issues we might see the numbers going down.
Okay, in the same breath, as we finalize with this, Naomi, perhaps highlight, are there issues when it comes to the Victims Protection Act? Because I understand it's there and it should be seen as a way to protect the rights of the victims as well as the accused person during the prosecution of these cases. Are there issues? You pick with that briefly.
The act is quite comprehensive and it protects the victim, but the implementation has been a big challenge in our country. Because the agency doesn't have enough funding, there are no enough shelters. There's so many things that are put in place that need to be put in place for the act to actually actualize. So that is one big challenge that is happening. The implementation is at a very low rate in Kenya.
Okay, so implementation really needs to be looked at. So Yvonne, as we finalize this particular conversation, implementation, of course, is the sole issue. That's what stands out. We have the laws in place, but the goodwill necessarily might not be there. So going forward, in terms of not just taking care of the victims, but also the rights of these purported perpetrators, what needs to work right now, apart from implementation, when we come to focus on the victims and their psychological well-being? Because we're in times where mental well-being is definitely being highlighted as one of the issues facing the society. So a multi-pronged approach from you, perhaps, in terms of the best benefits out of all this.
Thank you. So two things I would say. The first one is, like you rightly said, the rights of the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator. We need to actually think about, in most trauma-informed approaches, the trauma-informed approach actually looks at the perpetrator. And it's by looking at the perpetrator that we reduce the number of victims. So as we continue to focus on the victims, the system or the structures or the flawed culture that the other panelists talked about continues to churn out more perpetrators. So we need to actually ask ourselves what is causing the perpetrators to act the way they are. So that's one of it. And the other thing would be to actually ask ourselves, what's the role of psychology or mental well-being in policies in the criminal justice system? What's the role of psychology? How can psychology be used to support everybody who's working in the criminal justice system and thereby optimizing their performance? Because nobody is slacking because they are very bad people. Nobody is not giving the results or doing their work on time because they are bad or because they are vindictive. It's because they are coming from a place of trauma, and we need to approach each other with a lot of compassion.
Okay.
But mostly, let's just ask ourselves about the question of the role of psychology in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, I'm sure it's an important cog in this whole system. Thanks for highlighting that. So as we finalize, Jacqueline, perhaps in terms of seeking solutions, because we've very well evaluated the Sexual Offences Act, there might be a couple of hampers, roadblocks when it comes to getting the all-important justice. Perhaps highlight what sticks out for you. And for me, I don't know, perhaps you might talk about this, the out-of-court settlement. We've talked about it time and time again, and due to the culture in society, this might be an impediment. How do we approach this going forward? Because at times the family wants an out-of-court settlement, but it's not in the best interest of the minor who might have gone through this very unfortunate events. What's your take on this as we finalize?
Okay, for me, as I finalize, my issue is all the things the government has put in place and civil society organization work towards reacting to sexual offenses. It will get to a point, and I know there's some prison where prisoners, majority of the prisoners are serving time as a result of offenses related to sexual offenses. So which means there is a gap somewhere. Let's focus on preventive measures. The Court Users Committee, the GVRC centers, we have the Polycare. We need to reach out to the community. The community members are the right holders. They're the ones who have that right. We need to inform them about these laws. We need to then be able, as government and government agencies, to provide the services that is needed. If you look at issues such as mental health, which the speaker has mentioned about how do we integrate mental health into the society, when you reach out to community members, having the police, judiciary, all stakeholders, informing them about the law and the available avenues, if at all they're not receiving any support. But the moment we continue working in isolation as service providers, we'll have this problem. Let's focus on preventive measures, and those whose rights have been violated, government agencies must be able to
respond in a timely manner, in an efficient manner, and all will be well.
Well noted, ladies. Many thanks for your time, and we appreciate the fact that you availed yourself to have this all-important conversation touching on gender-based violence and the best ways to get the all-needed justice. We had this conversation with Naomi Kilima, who's a legal officer at the Center for Rights, Education and Awareness, joining us via way of Teams. Jacqueline Inguti as well, the regional coordinator at the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights. Yvonne Gashe, critical counseling psychologist at the Green String Network. Ladies, thanks for your time. I'm sure we'll have this conversation time and time again, because these are articulate matters that